and recording online. It's time for Clubhouse Chatter. Here's the one, the only, Norm Ordez.
Well, I don't know about the one and only. I actually did a search on Facebook one time for Norman Ordez's, and there was like 100 of them. All over Venezuela, Spain, Mexico, you name it. So my first guess this morning, there was ESPN did an article on the Ugandan Little League team. And so they had problems with their visas. And so this morning we have Mr. Richard Stanley, who is, that's his baby. He also is part owner of the Trenton Thunder. And Mr. Stanley, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. And good morning to you out in Oregon.
Well, good morning. And it is rainy here. It's actually, it's kind of crazy. It's about 55, 60 degrees today. So we want our sun back. So there was some, this is going to be kind of a longer show than what we normally have. But, I think this is something that needs to be heard. And, it's not good. And so first of all, tell us how you got involved with Little League Baseball in Uganda.
Well, in 2002, I was asked as a volunteer under a USAID project to go to Uganda to assist the vegetable oil development project that they were trying to become self-sufficient in production of vegetable oil, palm oil, sunflower seed oil, a little bit of soybean oil, etc. And the day I was leaving, the person who was in charge of the vegetable oil development project had a friend come over who was in the Justice Department of the Ugandan government, and he asked me if I would start baseball. And so my problem is I had a difficulty saying the word N-O, and I agreed to do this. And that's how it all started.
All right, so let's fast forward to 2012. So, like many Americans and many people around the world, I watch bits and pieces of the Little League World Series. And, being involved with youth baseball, I think it is one of the greatest spectacles in sports, to make it to Williamsport, or for the girls to make it to Alpenrose Dairy up in Portland, Oregon. And there was the first African baseball team from Uganda. And I watched those kids, and man, they were athletic. There were times to where they didn't really know what to do with the ball. You could tell that their grasp of baseball wasn't there, but those kids were athletic. And they quickly became the darling of Williamsport.
Well, the thing is, in Uganda, kids just want to play. They don't care what sport. But most African countries, and this is very true in Uganda, is oriented towards the adults. There's basically no kids programs. And this is one of the problems that Africa has, that they want to compete internationally. But if you don't train kids from very young, they never become good enough, or don't have the experience, or haven't physically developed and have the fundamentals to become international competitions. You see that in every sport that they compete as a team in. They just don't compete with Europeans, they don't compete with Americans, they don't compete with South Americans rather. You saw that in the World Cup. A whole bunch of African teams qualify, but they all get eliminated in the first round.
Right.
Even when Africa hosted it, they were eliminated in the first round 4 years ago. So if you're going to start baseball, you have to start with young kids. And in 2003, we started. First problem is getting equipment. There's no baseball equipment sold in Uganda. Of course, the sport doesn't really exist much. So we eventually did that, and we realized we're going to have to start with the kids, and that's Little League. And Little League supplied us with a starter kit in 2003, as is Major League Baseball did. And in 2004, we held our first tournament. And at that point in time, I said, okay, Little League, we have now a Ugandan champion. We had 4 teams play. And they said, fine, now you can send them to Poland. Great. How do I get there? Well, you pay for everything. And if they win in Poland, they can come to the U.S. So in 2008, I got up enough money to send a team to Poland, went through all the fights to get the visa from the Polish embassy in Kenya, and they tried to make it very difficult. But we got there. We went there in 2010, 2011, and finally in 2012, they were allowed to come to the Little League World Series, which is what you see. And all kids in Uganda, which was impressed me more than anything else, all they want to do is play. They'll play all day. Not worried about food, not worried about toilets, not worried about drinking water or anything. Just give us a chance to play. When we held our first tournament in 2004, we had 4 teams, and a gentleman at an international school on a soccer field, what they call a football pitch, he set up a temporary backstop at one side and had built a backstop that I drew for him on another corner of the soccer field. And we played 2 games starting around 9:30 in the morning. The winners played for the championship. But the other team says, hey, we want to play again. The 2 losers, so we had 2 teams to play again. And I awarded shirts to the winning team. And then the kids said, now this is around 1:30 in the afternoon, and they said, hey, we didn't play this other team. Can we keep playing? Of course you can keep playing. Why would you tell the kids you can't play? And this is what impressed me. That all you want to do is just play. And it's true of all sports. So now the question becomes, okay, what happens? In 2012, that team that you saw come over, they wound up basically had played maybe 12, 14 games at most in their life prior to coming. And you cannot learn how to play any sport unless you play many competitive games. So when they came, they had never seen a curveball. They were all basically 11 years old. And we just went through intensive coaching of that team because they won our tournament. And they were not very good at the time in May when they won the tournament. But we fought to get the visas. Eventually, we wound up getting the visas from the Polish embassy, where one of the coaches had to fly from Nairobi to Entebbe Airport in Uganda to meet the team, taking off within 2 hours of his arrival. They would not have been able to go without the passports or the visas, but that's how close it got. That was 2012. Every year they make it harder and harder. And this year they hit the jackpot. There's no way an African team is going to Poland. And the problem is, this year that you had to apply electronically. Prior to this, you did not have to. You just filled out an application, sent it to brought it to the embassy, had the birth certificates, had the passports, had notification that all the kids were medically insured when they were in Poland, and you had permission slips from the parents allowing them to go. You had a letter saying from the government Ministry of Sports, saying we support this team going to Uganda. You argued, and Little League argued from Poland, where the tournament was being held, and from Williamsport with the embassy to give us the visas, which they eventually finally did. But this year, they absolutely refused, even though we did everything they could possibly ask. So we tried to send 3 teams this year, girls 11 and 12, boys 11 and 12, and boys 13 and 14-year-olds for the 3 tournaments. They turned down every single one of them, even after they told the boys 11 and 12 and the girls 11 and 12, you have everything here. You can pick up your visas on certain dates. When they went to pick up the visas, they were denied for various crazy reasons. One was because it was going to be that if they went to Poland, they may not have enough money to get from the Warsaw airport to go the 50 miles in a bus to where the tournament was being held. And that was already paid for. And they were told they were already paid for. And how could you not have enough money to do that bus trip after paying over $20-some-odd thousand on airfare to get to Warsaw? It was absolutely nuts. And then, so we put this on the website, the whole history, if anybody wanted to see what went on. they can go to the Little League website of Uganda. It would be www.ugandalittleLeaguebaseball.org. And it'll be on the homepage exactly what went on and what happened in the Polish embassy.
And I encourage people to go there. You know, I know that we have some people over in Uganda and Kenya, I believe, are hopefully streaming the show today. You know, it's crazy. In each team, there was a different reason why they couldn't go, why the visas were denied.
Well, the first team, the boys 13, 14, they were supposed to leave on June 26th. We have to, in order to get there, you have to show that you have plane tickets for everybody, because the visa issued by the European Union countries, and by the way, it has to be in the country that you are flying into. Even though once you're there, you can go to any country without a problem, but you cannot get a visa except from the country you are flying into and you're leaving from. Since we are going to Poland, we have to go to a Polish embassy. All of East Africa has to go to the only Polish embassy in East Africa, which is in Nairobi, Kenya. So when we went there, we knew we had medical insurance because Little League in Poland said, yes, we have you covered. There's a copy of the medical insurance. They sent it by email and to the embassy. When we got to the embassy, they told us that's not good enough because it's not the original policy. We can't accept a email copy. We have to see the original one. Go buy another copy in Uganda that will cover you for medical travel to Poland. So if we did that, and it would cost us $1,200, we'd have to be doubly insured. Eventually, when we got to the 11 and 12-year-old kids, we did that. It cost us $2,500 for the two teams, and they still turned down the visa. They also told us that the parents' consent forms of a number of the kids were not signed by two parents. And we told them that although the parents, in many cases, are single-parent households, many women do not get married and have children anyway. And even though many parents who do get married, the father may have died from AIDS or whatever, and he's not available. So they say, well, then you need a death certificate. And there's no death certificates ever issued in Uganda. When you die, the neighbors come, dig a grave on your property, put the body in a casket, and within 24 hours, the person is buried, and they cover it with a metal cover and cement it. And that's how you get buried in Uganda. There's no records, there's no medical examinations to find out why you died or how you died. And then even those women who do not want to get married but still want to have children, you don't exist in European. You don't have single-family homes in Europe. This is crazy. So eventually we had, for the other two teams, we had to go to the local chair people who keep records and get a letter from them saying this child is from a single-parent home. We had the headmaster write a letter indicating every kid who is from a single-parent home on the two girls and boys team, the 11 and 12s. 13 and 14s were already finished because there was no way they were getting visas to leave on the 26th when the appointment was on the 24th. And they just refused. Then, in addition to that, on July 1, the coaches for the girls and boys team went to Poland, and they got told by the person, everything's in order. But we want you to send 7 of these players of the 24 to come to the embassy in Poland and get fingerprinted. Why? The new rules in the European Union is anybody 13 and above needs to be fingerprinted. There was nobody on this team that was 13. The closest one to turn 13 would be November of this year. But they said, well, 7 of these kids might turn 13 in the next 12 months. They need to come. So we sent them all to Nairobi on July 3rd. That's what the appointment date was. So in order to get there, they had to leave midnight on July 1 because it takes 18 hours bus ride to get there. And the only buses that go there leave midnight from Uganda or 6 a.m. in the morning because they do not want to travel in Kenya at night. So they were there, put them up in a hotel on the night of July 2nd, and they showed up at the embassy to be fingerprinted. Everything's in order. And then, since I'm supplying all the money, for some reason they found us out. I don't know who told them that I was supplying all the money. This is over $80,000 we've already spent. And as far as traveling for the 3 teams, the visas, the travel to Nairobi, back and forth, etc. And what happens is they send me an email on July 10. We want a photocopy of your passport. Why? I'm an American. I live in America. I'm not asking you for a visa. And why would I send a photocopy of my passport or even a driver's license? Fastest way to get fraudulent emails back and forth demanding money or using it to obtain money.
No, absolutely.
So I can't do that. It's a fraud. And the easiest way for identity theft. So then on the 15th, when the girls went there, they got turned down because I didn't send my photocopy of a passport. When did that become a requirement? For what purpose? That's what I say. It's ridiculous. Now they're going back and forth with me, within the person at the embassy. I'm not sure, assistant counsel or whatever. I'm getting emails back and forth saying nobody's supposed to know why they were turned down. I said to them, why do you people keep violating every rule you say? Your person told my person the reason why it got turned down is because my passport copy wasn't sent. And she never knew about it. How did the person know if she wasn't told by your people? And then why were we charged with visa fees? This is school. A school team competing in a sports event in Europe is not supposed to be charged if it's sponsored by a non-for-profit. Little League, as far as I know, is a non-for-profit. Why are we being charged visa fees? You still have to pay. There's also another reason in the European Union, if you go to the visa application course, is if you go for culture and education and you're under 25, you are not supposed to be charged. These kids are school kids. They're going to go through Warsaw. They're going to see a little bit about the history of Warsaw. Every time we've gone, we've taken them through Warsaw to understand what went on during World War II, etc., and how the city has changed. So it's a cultural education event. They should not have been charged, but we get charged anyway. So this is one of the problems. Now the real problem, though, is what's Little League going to do? We've been after Little League since 2004. Why do we have to pay $30,000 a team to go to Europe when all of Europe doesn't have to pay anything, basically, other than bus fare? We don't even need visas, but we need visas. Why don't you break Africa away from Europe?
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, you can't do that. Well, now, if something doesn't change real quick in Little League, they just wiped out all of Africa from ever participating in any Little League tournament.
And that's sad.
Little League team.
And so my question for you is I believe the Czech Republic, team out of the Czech Republic won the European part of the tournament. And so your boys and girls, they can flat out play. And
absolutely.
It's not like what it was 2012, when you're watching these kids and you had the pitchers throwing 60 miles an hour, which was a big problem, not seeing a curveball. You had the athleticism, but now not only do you have the athleticism, but now you've got knowledge of the game. And
well, let me give you a little bit of background on what we did. After 2012, I realized these kids, when they were coming home, were really not going to play. At most, they would play maybe 8 games a year if they wanted to keep playing. But the athletic talent is there. Obesity doesn't exist. So the question is, what do we do with these kids? And how do we keep them playing? And how do you learn? So I started a secondary school. And the purpose of the secondary school is to get these kids to play ball. And what happened is a number of these kids, we charge no tuition. It's a private school. It's what's called an international school. Our goal is to get these kids scholarships to U.S. universities on a basis of a half academic and half athletic. But you can't get an athletic scholarship unless that kid is good enough and help that coach win. So we have to produce the best kids in, well, our goal is to produce it in basketball, soccer, running, baseball, and possibly one or two other sports. And we will teach every one of these kids will go through calculus. They'll have every science, chemistry, physics, biology, earth science, astronomy, climatology in their 6 years of secondary school. This is what we are doing at the complex now. But every one of these kids will play sports every day, at least 3 hours every single day. So the teams that we were going to send, the 13, 14s, were at the school last year. And Little League refused to allow them to come because we had kids coming from all over the country to the school. And they said, well, you can't do that because you had a kid come from this program and that program. That's illegal. We didn't give you permission. So these kids were denied last year. And last year, we had 3 kids throwing 70 miles an hour on the 11 and 12-year-old team. Not 1, but 3. We would have had the pitchings, which we never had in 2012. And we would have the hittings because these kids play 200 games a year. They play 6 games of baseball a week. They play 4 soccer games a week. Every single week the school's in session. And these are smart kids. And this is what we want, boys and girls. Now, most of the girls have never seen a softball before they come to the school. We wound up with a girls softball team this year that we were intending to send. We had 3 pitchers throwing windmill pitching with great speed and control. We would have had a great opportunity, I think, to win in Europe. That tournament's going on right now. It will end on the 28th. We think we could have won and been in Portland, Oregon this year. Certainly the boys would have been heavily favored. We had 2 or 3 kids in the 11 and 12-year-old teams throwing at 70 miles an hour, seeing curveballs, knowing how to play, and having played against real good competition in the school. So this is what we missed. Now, are we giving up? No. Is Little League giving up on Africa? I think so. But we're now so much involved in this, and Major League Baseball knows what we're doing, that now we're going to deal with Major League Baseball. And we may come through on some other program. There's a Major League Baseball runs an RBI program.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with those or not.
I am.
Okay, but the person in charge, the senior vice president in charge, was in Uganda at our complex in January. She saw what was going on. So now the question is, will we come to the U.S. under RBI? But Little League basically has told us, you're never coming again, because you're going to have to go through Europe. We sent an email to Little League. I sent an email about a week ago. I said, well, there's no way we're going to Europe because Europe will never allow us because we're from Africa. And why don't we make Africa part of one of the U.S. regions? And we'll come to the U.S. and play against you in your regional tournament. If we win there, fine. We go to the World Series. If we lose there, we go home. No problem. The cost to come to New York and play in the East Regional is the same cost it would cost us to go to Poland.
That's
the
crazy.
incremental cost is 0. But are you going to wipe off all of Africa because Europe will never allow an African team to come? I don't know. This is up for Little League now. So, but we're not giving up. We're working with the government. We're expanding into the secondary schools all the way up through age 18, and the government is willing to work with us and support the program. And we will train coaches. Every year, for this will be the 6th year in a row in January, where we will run a 2-week training program for coaches in Uganda. Everybody's invited to come if you're serious, and we usually host 70 or so coaches for 2 weeks. We house and feed them at no cost. All they've got to do is show up. And this is what we're doing to expand baseball. Costs us a lot of money. Hopefully we'll continue to have the money and the equipment to do this. And hopefully what you see happening in the Dominican Republic with Major League teams, that may happen in Uganda. It's going to take a few years, but
Right.
I think it's going to happen.
So now, how many countries? So I know I was kicking around. I haven't checked out Kenya's website. I don't know if they have a website, but I know I've been kicking around on their Facebook page, and so they have Little League. So how many other African countries have Little League?
According to Little League, what are so-called registered, how serious they are, I don't know. How much equipment they have, I don't know. And how many games do they play, I do not know. But South Africa does have a Little League program amongst the white population in South Africa. They did send teams to Kootenai in 2010 and 2011 to play in the 11 and 12-year-old tournament. And I think in 2012, they sent a team in the 13-14. They lost every game. They never won. Again, because they don't play enough. And this is one of the things, even in Europe, most of the countries don't play enough to be competitive. What Czechoslovakia is doing, I don't know. I can't really tell you, but you'll find out when they get to the League World Series. Will they be competitive? I'm not optimistic.
I totally agree with you on that one. So let me ask you this question. So if Uganda was able to go to Poland, how do you think they would have won it?
They would have been heavily favored to win. If you don't know, the best team doesn't always win in baseball when it comes down to one game. But they would have been heavily favored. The talent was there. The pitching was there. We had 8 kids throwing in the high 60s, 2 of them in the 70s on the 11 and 12. In the 13-14s, we had 2 kids throwing 76, 77 miles an hour, and 4 or 5 others throwing in the around 70. We had the pitching, which they never had in 2012.
Right.
When they had. We had the hittings because all these kids know how to throw curveballs. They know how to throw changeups. They've been taught. They've been playing all these games. They've seen all this kind of pitching. When we played against other Little League teams who are just like similar to the Europeans, they just don't play. We wound up winning 30-something to nothing in 3 innings because they can't hit pitching that we have, and the pitching they have is not of the velocity that these kids see every day. In Uganda, the only way the 13-year-old, 14-year-old team, and by the way, there are only 7 13-year-olds. The others are 12 of the 14 kids. We have to play against the best adult players. And these kids will out-pitch them as far as velocity goes and curveballs and control goes. They will out-hit them, even though they're only 12 and 13 years old. And we're playing against men that are 25, 30, 20 years old. These are not kids that we're playing against. But that's the only way we can play a competitive game against anyone other than ourselves. So this is what the difference is playing on a regular basis means. You can develop the talent. The talent is there. We have a student who's at the school coming from the northern part of the country, and that's basically where a lot of our kids are coming from, because we want height and running speed to come to the school, plus being good academics. So we have a kid that's already 6'3" at 11 years old.
Wow.
And we're trying to teach him how to pitch. Now, he was not on the team that was going to go to Poland because he just came to school in January and never saw a baseball. But he can run and he can throw, and he doesn't have control at this moment. But he's going to get control because he's going to pitch twice a week, about 40, 50 pitches every single time he pitches, and he'll do this for about 40 weeks during the year. If you do that year after year, you're going to learn how to pitch. And if you're pitching games, which he's already doing on a regular basis, he's going to learn how to pitch, where to pitch to, when to pitch, and how important control is. And this is the talent that is there. And Major League Baseball is finding out.
Wow.
So that's why I think this is the future of Dominican Republic. Our biggest problem is we're 20 air miles away from New York, 20 air hours away from New York.
Right.
Big problem. But our advantage is the official language is English.
You know, I'm excited. I'm really excited for you guys. You know, even though, you know, you got the speed bump with Poland, and you know, there's always, there's always a purpose for something, and what it is, we have no idea. Maybe there are grander things for Ugandan baseball, besides Little League. And you guys sound like you're doing it right over there. And it's not all about baseball, which is good. And I applaud you. We applaud you over here in Oregon for what you guys are doing over there. And 2012, you guys were the darling of Williamsport. Watching those kids play the game with the passion, and you heard stories of some of the players didn't like wearing cleats because they weren't used to wearing cleats and it bugged their feet. That they would rather play barefooted.
They still do.
And
the league requires them to play with shoes. And but all the kids, they all had shoes. It's not that they didn't have shoes; they had shoes. They just feel more comfortable playing barefoot. Catchers drives me crazy. Catchers want to catch with no shoes.
That's funny.
But they want to catch that way. That's what they prefer. They have the shoes, but no, I don't want to wear them. I want to play without the shoes and catch. Foul tips doesn't bother them.
That's crazy. They just want to play the game, and it's sad when adults come into a child's world like that and have to ruin it. Number one, you're ruining the dream for the kids, and number two, you're ruining it for everybody else because now we don't get a chance to see Uganda in the Little League World Series this year. And it sounds like to me that it was very possible that they would have been in Williamsport and beyond.
All three teams had a very good chance of being there, yes. They could have been in Williamsport. The 13-year-old kids would have gone to Taylor, Michigan, which is where their tournament held, and the girls would have been, as you know, in Portland.
Yep.
And my biggest problem was to get enough of our coaches if all three teams went. Because they'd basically be playing almost the same time. And
right.
We have full-time coaches because what we've done is we have the kids. By the way, school starts, first class is 7:20 in the morning. And they go for an hour. And they basically take science, math, English, and history, geography. Full class is 4 hours with 10 minutes in between each class. And they start at 7:20. The grass is wet until about 9:30. But the first-year kids play. They go to school till noon, have lunch, and then from 2 to 5:30, they're playing. I have 5 days a week. Saturday, play all day. Sunday, they play half day. On the second-year kids, they go to school at 7:20 for the first class, and then they play from 9:30 to 12:30 in the morning. So the coaches are busy for the 3 hours in the morning. They break for lunch, and then they're busy for three and a half hours in the afternoon with the other group. So we have full-time coaches. All they do is coach. Now, those other kids, the second-year kids, they go then for the remaining three classes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 2 to 5:30 is when they consider the classes. Okay, this year we'll add a third group now. Eventually, each year, because of the school system, is they go primary 1 to primary 7, secondary 1 to secondary 6, and 3 years of university. So what we will do next year, we'll add a third class now. We will not take any kids in if they have not gone through the first year. Almost like the military academies. You cannot get into West Point or the Air Force Academy except going through the first year. First, second, third, fourth year. You have to do all 4 years. There's no transfers into the junior year. You're always in the freshman year, work your way up. And we're doing the same thing. We will lose some kids. We had a Muslim girl who was potentially a very good athlete, whose father, the mother was furious, but the father said, this is not a Muslim school. I need her to go to Muslim school. He pulled her out in May. You're not going to the school anymore, even though she just started in January. Our school year starts January to December. He demanded, and he had never been to the school. The girl was brokenhearted. She was crying. Couldn't convince the father. The mother was so upset. And this is a great potential athlete and a great student. And an opportunity has been denied her. And our goal is to get them to universities in the U.S.
Right.
to play sports and become scientists or engineers. If they become a scientist or an engineer, they have a great opportunity to get a job in the U.S. if they want to stay. If they don't want to stay, they can go back to Uganda, and Uganda's in desperate need of scientists and engineers. So we would accomplish a great thing for the kids. Maybe they're never going to be play professional, but it's a way of learning how life goes on and how to get to a good education. And that's what we're really trying to do. And hopefully we'll have other schools in the area do the same thing. And we have a number of persons. There's a person, believe it or not, from the University of Oregon who runs a program over there. And he is working with schools in another city, Lira, north of us. So he is supporting this program. And we have a couple other programs like this. So what we're doing over there hopefully will be emulated by a whole bunch of other people in the rest of the country. And that's what the government is very much interested in Uganda. The Commissioner of Sports sees us changing the education way of teaching in Uganda. Because one of the things when we first started with the coaches, if a kid made an error, and this is over a year ago now, when I found this out, if the kid made an error, they would cane the kid. I say, hey, you can't do that. Does Tiger Woods, when he misses a putt, does his wife cane him? Or his girlfriend cane him for send her $1 million or something, whatever it is?
It's possible.
Well,
I doubt it, but yeah.
I don't want to do it in public in any event. So we had to teach them. We had to teach the coaches. Okay, if a kid has a problem or whatever, or you got a discipline problem, you don't beat the kids.
Right.
This is common in Uganda. You have them do 5 push-ups or 10 push-ups and make it a game. And this is how we've changed the thing. In the school itself, the teachers, in Ugandan teaching, and this is Ugandan government knows it has to change this. The teachers come in and lecture. The kids are never allowed to ask a question. The class size in most schools in Uganda are 60 to 80 kids in a class, all in uniform, not a sound. They're not allowed to talk. If you give an exam and the kid doesn't do well in the exam, the teacher canes him. You can't do this. We're trying to get the teachers to talk to the kids. Let the kids answer. Let them talk. Let them ask questions. Ask questions of the kids. Make sure the dumbest one, or the slowest one, I shouldn't say dumbest, but the slowest one is learning. Don't ignore the slowest ones, because we want everybody to succeed. We want everybody who's going to have to take the SAT exams. We want everybody to get a half academic scholarship at least to universities in the U.S. That's our goal. And if we have a kid who doesn't make it, it's the teacher's fault, not the kid's fault. We didn't teach that kid right, or we didn't select the right kid to do this. And this is what we're trying to do. And the government understands their way of teaching over the years is not the right way anymore. They've got to change. And we evidently, at least indirectly, we are setting an example that everybody is very impressed with what we're doing over there as far as even teaching academically. And also, obviously, with the sports. The school is set up so that the sports commissioner has asked us if we would host national basketball championships for all the schools at the complex, where we host baseball, obviously, softball championships if we develop the sport throughout the country, where we host football, soccer programs. And we said yes, because one, we have the fields, and two, we have the dormitories that house up to 300 kids.
Nice.
And we can feed them all, which is what we do. But again, nobody's charged. This is all paid for by me.
That's pretty awesome. So once again, go ahead and plug the Ugandan Little League site for us.
The website would be www.ugandalittleleaguebaseball.org. And you'll see a whole bunch of newspapers. If you go through our history on the website, there's also a bunch of pictures of the construction of the complex. But if you go through the history, it'll tell you exactly what went on, because what's on that home page eventually when it gets replaced with the next one, usually a month or two away, we'll go to our history. So you can go back to, and you'll see that I think the website's been in existence now for about 4 years. So you'll see a whole history of what went on, all our problems, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, what we have accomplished, and what's happening. But our goal right now is, since we're basically eliminated from any chance of playing in Little League, unless Little League changes its policies and does something. I don't know what they can do, though, at this moment. It's up to them.
Right.
But we're going to hopefully come to the U.S. With the help of Major League Baseball, and we're going to hopefully play about 6 or 8 games in a week, maybe 2 weeks, somewhere in the U.S., in the potentially RBI program. We don't know, but that's what we're working on now, and hopefully it will work out shortly. And we'll keep you informed as it happens.
Definitely. And, you know, I would, you know, whatever we can do to help. I know we're kind of limited, but, you know, I'm a baseball card collector, and I've got, like, doubles of my baseball cards. So if you want to pass baseball cards out to the kids, I can mail you some.
Oh, we have baseball cards that these kids just want to play.
You know, and, you know, so go to the Uganda Little League Baseball.org, check it out, and, you know, read up the story. It's definitely unique, and you know, it's sad. It's sad, but, you know, unfortunately, that's the way some parts of the world still is and works. Once again, Mr. Richard Stanley. Mr. Stanley, we thank you for coming on the show, and, you know, stay in touch.
It's been my pleasure, and if anybody wants to get in touch with me, by all means, feel free. You can do it through the website. I'd be happy to communicate with anyone. And if anybody wants to assist what we're doing in Uganda, by all means, we can always direct you. And anybody who wants to come to Uganda and see what we're doing is welcome to come. We'd be happy to, especially if you want to come and visit us. I'll be there in January, from just before New Year's to around the 25th of January. Then I'll be back for a couple of weeks in March, and then I'll be there from early May through the middle of June next year at least.
What do you think, Brian? Think we'd go to Uganda and do a show?
That'd be great.
Brian nodded his head. So we'll thank you very much, and like I said, go check it out, UgandaLittleLeagueBaseball.org. Mr. Richard Stanley on the line, and you know, good luck. And, you know, we hope to be seeing these kids come to America soon.
Well, hopefully we'll work that out, because the talent is there.
Sounds
And
good.
we publicize that talent. Take care. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So once again, Mr. Richard Stanley, I'd like to plug our sponsors. First and foremost, I'd like to plug YamhillToday.com. We stream live every show on YamhillToday.com. We are part of the 9-inning Know-It-All crew. I get my hair cut down on Baker Street at Proper Cuts Barbershop. Carlos and the boys. Base by Pros. Mitch Canham over there does some, you know, classes, stuff, camps, as well as BaseballDudes.com. Chris Gazelle up there in Vancouver. My shirts are done up by Mark Canham, Mitch's dad, over at MDM Design. And Baseballisms, baseballism.com. Go to their website, buy some items, type in Clubhouse Chatter, you save 15% off. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to hopefully come back with Denny McClain from Cooperstown, New York. Thanks for watching.